Hi guys, I Aziz welcome you to CoedMaster. In this video, I am going to talk about Array.flat function in JavaScript. If you are looking out to master Array.flat function, then you have landed on the right video. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Alright guys, so let's start with a very simple example. So over here, I have written a nested array. If you look at this array carefully, at index 0 we have 0 element or 0, at index 1 we have 1, at index 2 we have nested array which has 2 and 3 elements, and again this nested array has again one nested array with the element 4 and 5, and again this nested array has 2 elements 6 and 7 which is present in the nested array itself. And in the last, we have again a nested array with 8 and 9 elements inside of it. So this is pretty much a simple decent nested array. Now we need to call the flat function on this nested array. So what happens when we call the flat function on this array? That we need to understand. But in order to understand how flat function actually works, first we have to understand what does it mean by flat function or flattening the array. Okay. So to understand, let's go to MDN documentation and read out the definition of flat function. So here if you read out the flat function definition, it says that the flat method of array instances creates a new array with all the sub-array elements concatenated into it recursively up to the specified depth. Great. So to understand this definition, let's break it down into small pieces. So here we need to focus on 4 important things. First thing is, when we call the flat function or flat method on any array, it's going to give us a new array. Okay, so let me write it down over here that when we call it, it's going to give us a new array. Cool. Another thing is, it will go to all the sub-array elements and then it will concatenate all of those elements into the new array. Okay, so let me write it down. Go to all the sub-arrays and concatenate it. Okay, great. The third thing is, this function go to all the sub-arrays recursively. So this is another important point. It will help us in writing the flat function from scratch. Okay, so far so great. And the last thing is, which is a very important part, that this function goes to all the sub-arrays recursively up to the specified depth. This is very important. Okay, so it simply means it's not going to go to all the sub-arrays. Rather, there is a parameter or argument. The name of that argument is depth, which decides whether the function needs to go to specific depth or not. Now here, if the term depth is not clear to you, then let me take this opportunity to make you understand the meaning of depth. Okay, so what does it mean by depth over here? So if you look at this array carefully, this array is the root array. Okay, so whatever elements present in this array is at the depth of 0. So which means the depth of 0 is 0, depth of 1 is also 0. Now the third element of this array is the nested array. So what will be the depth of this nested array? It definitely the 1. Okay, so the depth of element 2 and 3 is 1 because it is present in the 1 level down the root array. Correct? Similarly, what will be the depth of 4 and 5 element? It's basically 2 because the depth of these 2 and 3 elements is 1. Then the depth of 4 and 5 element is 2. Why? Because the array where 4 and 5 exist is a part of this array basically. So if the depth of 2 and 3 is 1, then the depth of 4 and 5 is 2, then the depth of 6 and 7 is 3, so on and so forth. And similarly, the depth of 8 and 9 is also 1. Why? Because the first element of this array is 0, second is 1, third is this entire array, okay, and the fourth one is this. So the depth of 8th and 9th is exactly same as depth of 2 and 3. So far, so great. Excellent. So I hope that by now we understood that what does it mean by flat and what is the meaning of depth. So let me recall once again. Flattening an array basically means we have to go recursively to all the nested array. Then we have to collect all the elements of sub-array, create a new array, and concatenate all the elements of subarray into that new array. But we have to make sure that we do not have to go to each and every subarray. There is a one parameter or argument with the name depth, and this argument influences the decision of going to a specific depth of the array. As simple as that. Now let's understand that what will be the output of this array if we call the flat function on this array. Okay, so let me call console.log and let's call arr.flat. So this time we are not supplying the value of depth because the default value of depth is always 1. Let's save the file and let's run the program, and you will see the output over here, and you can see that we got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, 9. Now great, cool. So let's understand why we got this output. Okay, so as 0 and 1 is at level 0, obviously we are going to get these two elements in the resultant array. Then the 2 and 3 is at the level 1, which is why 2 and 3 is concatenated into the new array. Cool. The 4 and 5 is at level 2, but the default value of depth is 1, so it remains intact. Okay, and 6 and 7 is also remain intact, and 8 and 9 is also at the level 1, so it got concatenated into the new array. So far so clear. Excellent. Now let's pass value of 2 to this flat function. Okay, let's save the file and see the output. This time we are flattening the elements at depth 2, correct? So that's it. That is why we got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this time we have concatenated 4 and 5 to the newly created array. Great. And if we pass 3 over here, then it's going to concatenate or flatten all these subarrays. Why? Because 2 and 3 is at level 1, 4 and 5 is at level 2, and 6 and 7 is at level 3. So which is why all the elements of subarray is concatenated into the new array. Excellent job. Now I hope the concept of flattening the array is clear to you. So this is the right time to write the flat function from scratch. So let's get started. So for that reason, let me write array.prototype.myFlat function. Okay, this function is going to receive one argument, and the name of that argument is depth, and the default value of this depth argument is equal to 1. Cool. Now as per our definition, we have to recursively go to all the subarrays. So for that reason, we have to create one function with the name flat, and this function is again going to receive two arguments. The name of first argument is array and the name of second argument is depth, and then whatever this function returns, we have to return the value of that function out of my flat function. Okay, great. Now we need to pass the array and depth value to this flat function, but we still don't have hold of the array on which my flat function is going to run. So for that reason, let me define one variable with the name array, which is going to equal to the value of this. And what is the value of this? The value of this is equal to the array on which we are going to call the myFlat function. Great. Now as we have the value of array, let's pass the value of array and the value of depth to this function. Excellent. Now coming to this recursive function. So what we have to do? We have to iterate over all the elements of array. So for that reason, we can write for of loop to loop over all the elements of array. Let element of array. Okay, this way we can iterate to all the elements of array. Now we need to make decision that whether the element of this array is nested array or not. For that reason, we have to check if the element is array or not. For that, we can use the isArray function of array object and pass the element to it. If it returns true, which means it is a nested array, else it is a normal element. So if it is a normal element, we need to do something. So what we need to do? We have to create a new array. Okay, so let's create a new array over here. So let new array and assign a blank array to this variable. Fine. Now we can simply push the element to this new array like this. Great. Now what happens if it is a nested array? We have to recursively go to that array. So for that reason we have to call the flat method again by passing the element and the value of depth. Now this time we will reduce the depth value by 1. Why is it so? Because at each level we are going to reduce the value of depth to -1. And why is it so? Because if the value of depth is 3, then the value of depth here is 3, then 2, and then 1. That's it. So it's going to cover all the elements, all the nested array. Okay, and obviously this function is going to return us an array. So let's store the returned array in the variable with the name result. And then what we have to do, we have to concatenate all the subarrays into a new array. So we have to write new array dot concat method and give it a result. Okay, now the concat method takes two array and returns a new array. For that reason we have to save the returned array into this variable array like this. But here there is still one thing is left. So here we are checking the array, but we have to again check that if the depth is greater than 0. Why is it so? Because if the depth is greater than 0, then only we need to recursively go to nested array. Otherwise we can simply ignore it. Okay, so I think this is pretty much the algorithm of this myFlat function. And let me recall once again that we have flat method which we are going to call recursively. Here we have access to array, we have depth is equal to 1, we are iterating to all the elements of array. Okay, so here we are checking the element on which we are traversing is the array or not, and we are also parallelly checking the depth. If the depth is greater than 0, then we are recursively calling the flat method, storing the return value of flat method to result, and then we are concatenating new array and the returned array, and the given array is stored in the new array variable, and so on and so forth. So I think we are done with the implementation. Now let's check our implementation by replacing the flat method with myFlat. So this time let me pass 1 over here. Let's save the file and see the output. So we are getting undefined. So why we are getting undefined? Because we are not returning anything from this function. So let's return new array from this function. And there we go. Let's save the file. And now you can see the same output as before. So this time we have passed nothing to myFlat function, which is why the value of depth is 1. And the elements at depth 1 is concatenated into the new array. So which is why we are getting 0, 1, 2 and 3 gets concatenated, 4, 5, 6 and 7 remains intact, and 8 and 9 is also concatenated into the new array. So let's pass 2 to this myFlat function and observe the output. So this time the elements at depth 2 is also concatenated into the new array, which are 4 and 5. So which is why we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then we have 6, 7 and 8, 9. Now let's pass 3 to this myFlat function and observe the output. Now this time you can see that elements at depth 1, 2 and 3, all of those elements are concatenated into new array, which is why we are getting the single array which has all the elements 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So I hope now you have a very clear understanding of how to write flat function from scratch. So this is pretty much all about myFlat function in JavaScript.
Alright guys, this is all from my side for this video. If you learned something valuable from this video, then please hit the like button in order to make YouTube algorithm happy. Please subscribe to this channel and don't forget to click the bell icon so my friend you never miss any upcoming videos. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.